Welcome to the Commentary Magazine Daily Podcast. Today is Thursday, May 16th, 2024. I am John Podhoretz, the editor of Commentary Magazine. With me, as always, executive editor Abe Greenwald. How are you, Abe?
I'm well. Hi, John.
Yeah, I changed it up.
I'm disoriented, but I'm great.
We couldn't cope with it. I'm sorry. I don't even know where that came from. I'm telling you, I'm getting old.
Concern for your colleagues.
Okay. Media commentary columnist Christine Rosen. Hi, Christine.
Hi, John.
And Washington commentary columnist Matthew Continetti. Hi, Matt.
Hi, John.
Hi, Abe.
Hi, John.
Okay, we're back on track. And the presidential race is now on a faster track. In the first piece of exciting news ever in the 2024 race, a race in which there has been no exciting news of any kind at all for 18 months. Suddenly, at 8 o'clock in the morning yesterday, there are debates on, and we have a date for the first debate. We have the network that's going to air the first debate. We have the moderators for the first debate. We have rules for the first debate, June 27th, CNN, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. Trump versus Biden, no audience. Mic's cut off when you're not speaking. Very interesting, almost as though it was all pre-planned somehow. And also a September debate agreed to as well under different rules that ABC will host. Apparently NBC is full of angst and consumed by anxiety because they're not getting to host, because, if there's one thing, it's that MSNBC is going to get to host a presidential debate. Ha ha ha. Now, all right, I guess we have to, let's do a quick go round. Okay. Advantage who in the first debate. Okay. So you got no RFK. So Abe, advantage.
Do I just have to spit it out or can I give a little spiel?
Can you spit it out and then give a spiel?
Trump.
Because?
But it's an if. If he can learn from his past, if he can rein it in, he could, otherwise he blows. But advantage Trump because it's his to blow.
Okay.
He's the only one who can get an advantage here, or he can give it to Biden.
Okay. Matt, advantage
Biden.
Why?
The refs, the CNN moderators are going to be on Biden's side, and their questions will be very pointed to exposing Trump's weak spots, especially regarding abortion and January 6th. And I'll stop there so we can hear Christine.
Christine, advantage?
I'm going to say Trump because I think that although I agree with Matt's analysis of the media environment he's going to be in, I think no matter what he does, it's going to be very difficult for Biden not to look extremely staged and handled and prepared in a way, not good prepared. Like, we have to manage this guy so carefully because he's so incapable of doing the basic thing, which a presidential candidate should be able to do, which is get up on stage and talk about what he wants to do for the country. It's very difficult for him. The jump cuts in the number, I know I harp on this, the number of jump cuts in a very short video that Biden's team released yesterday saying, "Oh, I'm ready to fight." That worries me. I don't think he's going to be able to keep it together on stage. Not having an audience will help him, but I still think Trump will spin it in a way for viewers who aren't tuning into every detail that will advantage him over Biden.
I got to go with advantage Trump slightly, only on the grounds that it seems to me that the risk here, despite what everybody seems to be thinking in the mainstream media, there is a risk of Biden destroying his presidential candidacy that does not exist with Trump. So therefore, Trump's in the advantage because one false move by Biden calls, Zelensky the president of North Korea, or he loses his train of thought, or his voice starts getting bizarrely raspy, or he kind of gets caught in a reaction shot with his mouth hanging open or something like that. Those are little things. He can also make huge policy mistakes. We have never seen him speak in the last, 2 years off the cuff for more than 10 or 15 minutes at a time, this is going to be, we don't know what, 90 minutes, 2 hours. The possibilities of him doing something that throw the entire race into a kind of existential crisis, way higher than Trump, who is at risk because there's likely going to be a verdict in the New York trial before June 27th. I guess it's more likely than not that verdict will be guilty, though I'm still suspicious of whether or not the case has been made sufficiently for all 12 jurors for there not to be a juror who would hang and therefore, end up in a hung jury with no verdict.
And I just, on this point, I think that Biden is in a position where, at this point, his absolute best is not good enough, is still alarming. And particularly to Matt's point about the moderators and the network sort of propping him up, that will look bad. That will look transparent. Exactly. And people will reject that. Like, did you see what they had to do to get him to be substantive, to try to give him an edge? I think it's too obvious at this point.
Here's the funny thing about these debates. Biden is looking to these debates as a way to redefine the 2024 campaign around Trump. But because he and his team don't have enough confidence in the candidate or themselves, they have front-loaded the debates so that even if Biden does well, the effect of the debate will have dissipated by the time we arrive at Election Day. And Biden can do well. Biden, they pump him full of whatever they give him before the State of the Union, right? And if he delivers a debate,
so they're going to take those kids down into the basement of Comet Pizza, get the adrenochrome out of them. Yeah, the Harkonnens. Okay.
He'll float in, and kind of hover above the lectern. And then as long as he performs the way he performed at the State of the Union, the Democrat media reaction will be, look at this. New race. Biden is back. So that's the bar. It's a completely artificial bar. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying that's the bar. But John, you make a good point, is we just don't know. He could do something that would capsize his candidacy. If the performance in the first debate is more like his rushed press conference after the Robert Hur report, well, that would be a disaster for Biden.
Right.
But I'm also left wondering, would Trump allow that moment to pass without stepping on it and turning it into himself, something about himself?
Look, that's a very good point. Trump does not know. My guess is that in his heart or in his soul or the way he manages, he does not know that there are going to be things where he would be best to leave Biden to heaven, to let it happen and then let the horror of what has happened if something horrible happens just roll over people. The State of the Union was a really good performance by Biden because he had a teleprompter. My concern is that almost every time we have seen him, and by the way, this dates back a couple of years. Remember, he had that temper tantrum in Europe somewhere with Caitlin Collins asking him a couple of questions that he didn't like. Now, will he be on his best behavior? Sure. Are they gonna do Ron Klain's magical debate prep? Ron Klain supposedly being the world's greatest debate prepper. Will he be doing that? Have they given themselves a month or more to prep Biden for debate, to get the answers down with a lot of time so that he can take a nap after every session and all of that? Yes. So, all of the building blocks are there for Biden to have a really good night and redefine the presidential contest because Trump will be Trump. And Trump, one-on-one in the two debates with Biden, was terrible in 2020. But Trump is still Trump. So if you hate him, you hate him. If you love him, you love him. If you're in the middle right now, according to polling, you're kind of okay with him, or like, or you're kind of, you've lost the edge of anger. Maybe he can through bad behavior, he can remind people why they disliked him so much in 2020, the people who are going to make the decision about who is president in 2024. But I just don't see him being substantively different, and therefore I don't see how he injures himself.
Well, one aspect of having a two incumbent race is that you really don't know who's going to win the first debate, because in recent cycles, the incumbent president always loses the first debate.
Right.
I mean, this was the case going back to Ronald Reagan in '84. His first debate in his reelection campaign was terrible.
Oh, Carter in '80. Carter had maybe the worst debate in American history was Carter's debate performance.
More recently, we had, of course, the first debate with Trump. Just as an aside, there was a funny moment on CNN yesterday where Wolf Blitzer complimented Chris Wallace for his moderating during that first debate in 2020. And Chris Wallace, to his credit, laughed in Wolf Blitzer's face, because even Chris Wallace knows that debate was a disaster for everyone who came close to it.
Yeah.
And Obama in 2012, Mitt Romney walloped the floor with Obama in 2012. Well,
Kerry walloped,
and Kerry had a good.
Bush
I want to go. John Kerry doesn't really wallop John. He kind of,
no, but Bush
touches with
really
a feather.
Bush really did badly in the first.
Bush did a badly debate.
So you're saying they're both incumbents?
So they're both incumbents, so they probably will both do badly. And then it just becomes a question of, how does that affect votes at all? Or again, they're so early. These debates are June and September. Remember how in each of the examples I just mentioned, but for Carter and Trump, the incumbent was able to
turn it around,
reassert the momentum, turn it around by the time of the vote. Neither candidate, this is what's interesting, neither candidate has debated since 2020. In his Clint Eastwood video yesterday announcing the debates, Biden made it a thing, like, well, you say you want to debate me, but you haven't debated anyone for years. Well, neither has Biden.
Well, this is the part where there's a new theme emerging from the Biden campaign that strikes me as misguided long term, although they might be seeing some short term, particularly online, positive response. It's that attitude. It's the video. It's the attitude that Matt just described that he had in the video. It's the T-shirts that say "Free on Wednesdays," right? This idea that they're mocking Trump for being targeted for all the trials, which, as we've discussed many times, people aren't following super closely the details. Many people have a sense that it seems extraordinary how much legal trouble this guy finds himself in while running for president. And there's a sense of unfairness, right? I think people are like, wow, they're just throwing the book at him. They must really hate him. He must be really, dangerous to what they want to do, or a threat to what they want. And I think that kind of swagger, I guess I would call it, is really misplaced for Biden to do. First of all, because he ran as the grown-up. That's not a very grown-up attitude. Second of all, I think it reminds people that he is not taking seriously the range of concerns that voters who did vote for Trump in the past and might in the future have, because he's just mocking Trump. And I feel like that's not a great strategy for him. So we'll see whether he continues that in a debate. I think that wouldn't work well for him.
Why this is so great that this is happening. And I genuinely think it's great that this has happened, because we have existed in this condition of torpor where the only people who are engaged in this election are highly motivated partisans on both sides who would be engaged in the election for whatever reason. And their reactions, and particularly now the outsized effect of social media amplifying their reactions, means it's very hard to get a clear picture of what this election might actually be about. And they're going to have to answer questions on matters of policy and the different visions that they both have and address the two elephants in the room, right? One, is Trump a crook? And two, is Biden compos mentis? And those are the two issues that are going to be are the ones that are going to be adjudicated, along with the actual answers that they give to questions
Yeah, I mean, are
about.
those
They're
really
both bad
up
on
for
policy.
debate?
Yeah.
Either
Yeah. No,
one.
they're both bad when it comes to the details of policy, but for different reasons. Trump, because
Yeah.
he just likes to stay at the 30,000 foot level and
Right.
repeat slogans. But Biden, because either because he hasn't gotten into the details of it, or B, because he can't actually articulate them in a way that people could understand. So they're both kind of disasters on that front.
May I ask? I've been very interested in the resistance response to the news of yesterday, because 24 hours before Biden and Trump agreed to the debates, Nancy Pelosi was saying Biden should not debate. And earlier in the year, our friend and occasional contributor David Frum wrote a impassioned piece on The Atlantic, this is in April, saying Biden should not debate Trump because to do so would legitimate Trump as a equal challenger to the presidency. I don't know how Resistance Inc. is feeling about this decision, or whether they think Biden is going into it from a position of strength. I do agree with Christine. The Beltway has decided this has been a great move for Biden, that he was able
Are you calling me the Beltway?
I'm no. I'm just saying.
No, because I said it was
Beltway adjacent.
I said advantage Trump, but yes,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm more Beltway.
You're
here.
the
I was
Beltway.
the one who said
Beltway.
that Biden.
Yeah.
I'm the Beltway representative. Because Biden was able to chip the story away from the polls, at least for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to lay down the conditions: no audience, microphones cut off, no RFK Jr., only two, and early in the year. And Trump agreed to everything. And so, and now I'll use another cliche. The political class says this means that Biden has Trump where he wants him. I'm not so sure, because it seems like Trump is really eager to get into the debate stage, and Biden has been reluctant. And now Biden will be in a position where he is under the lights for 90 minutes.
But I mean, good or bad, I think these situation is that had Biden not taken up Trump's invitation, Trump would have made Trump's challenge, anywhere, anytime. Trump would have made an ongoing issue of that.
Sure.
He's done,
and vice versa.
And that would have been bad.
And say Biden had said that, laid down the challenge, and Trump didn't agree, then Biden would use that as a campaign thing too.
Look, there's been this, I think, slightly deranged conservative triumphalism about the poll numbers, which, are in Trump's favor. But then every other day, there's a national poll that has the race still at 1 point between them. So the idea that this race is anywhere near decided or over, or that either one, or that Trump has a distinct advantage, is a delusion born of the fact that most people on the right can't imagine that anybody in America could look at Biden and vote for him. And that it is a good thing for them to understand that Trump thinks that there's a race on. And it's actually a good thing for Trump that Trump thinks that there's a race on that he has to win. And that just like insulting and name-calling Biden and saying he's a crook and Hunter's a crook and he's seeing whatever it is he says, this is the future of the country's at stake. This is 140 to 160 million votes are going to be cast. And anybody who thinks that they know how November is going to come out is kidding themselves. And this is also a huge problem for the Biden people and Biden's not only resistance people, but also the whole world of opinion like David's, which the notion that Joe Biden has the moral standing to declare the candidate for president of the Republican Party out of moral bounds and beyond the right to make an argument in his presence for why he should or should not be president. That is living in a moral bubble that America doesn't live in. America has already made it clear. It's not like Trump lost by a huge margin in 2020. He lost by 44,000 votes across 3 states. It's not like he didn't walk in to the nomination of one of the 2 major political parties in the most important country in the world, because he did. He is the representative of the Republican Party in the United States in a presidential race. And the fact that serious people think that somehow their disgust and outrage with him should then inform the way that Americans are going to vote in November is unhealthy. It's intellectually unhealthy.
Well, but this is really important, because this has been the tone and tenor of his entire presidency. And that is not, even though it's not what he promised, what all presidents are supposed to do is say, I'm going to bring the country together, right? I mean, I know it's a cliche, but people like to hear it for a reason. He has not done that. He has by demonizing Trump, he has demonized, all of Trump's voters. And he actually needs to persuade some of those voters. And he needs to keep his base, which is defecting from the Democratic Party, parts of it. So I think there's a way in which he's incapable, despite being, pitched to the country as Mr. Empathy way back when. He is not. He's really not able to articulate that kind of message for the voters who he should try to reach. And there's an elitist overtone to a lot of that moral grandstanding that he does with regard to Trump that I just don't think people are going to buy. And again, to Abe's earlier point, it doesn't. Even if he could do that in a vigorous way, it's not persuasive, because now he's not as vigorous, even as he was, a few years ago.
Look, I think in keeping with the fact that, we are so focused on the war between Israel and Hamas, it is vitally important for this country that the 2 people who want to lead the free world have a conversation next to each other about where America stands in this war, what it's about, who should win, whether victory should be achieved, what victory would look like. I'm not now just talking about what's better or worse for either one electorally. The Biden administration is gaslighting America every day by talking out of both sides of its mouth about everything that's going on. Trump is getting clearer on the idea that Israel needs to win and that there may be a moral framework, and that may be something that he'll solidify over the next month. That is a discussion that this country and the world desperately needs to hear. So simply for that, on those grounds alone, having an argument about what caused inflation, or what's the result, what causes this or what causes that domestically, very complicated. How America should be thinking about Israel and Hamas, and how America should be thinking about Ukraine, and how America should be thinking about China. These are the vital issues that are going to govern how the free world functions over the next 20 years. And we cannot have a clear, everything is muddied. And there'll be this moment when they are both going to have to be on the record in each other's face about this. And that is devoutly to be wished. And another reason that I am myself very pleased to know that this is going to happen in June rather than in late September. Because, we're all being driven crazy. Everyone on the planet is being driven crazy by, I would say, the Biden inconstancy on where America is standing and falling on this. And he will be asked directly, and there will be a chance for Trump to rebut his answer. And that will help clarify matters of deep importance. Now, I need to stop. Speaking of matters of deep importance, I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast a new advertiser. It's the University of Austin. You've been hearing about this innovative new experiment in higher education. and we're here to tell you about it. The new university dedicated to the fearless pursuit of truth. At the University of Austin, a culture of open inquiry and civil discourse helps us break through barriers instead of walking on eggshells. On campus in downtown Austin, Texas, students will grapple with history's most important ideas with guidance from world-class professors. They will have unparalleled access to leading mentors in business, politics, and the arts, and develop careers alongside Austin's path-breaking entrepreneurs, builders, and founders. What's more, all students in the founding class will receive full tuition scholarships for all 4 years. Admissions are rolling for fall 2024. Learn more and apply now at uaustin.org. That's uaustin.org. And of course, it's very, very exciting that this is happening right now, given everything that is going on campus. Quick detour to the campuses. 2 regents of the University of Michigan had protesters storm their houses, come onto their front lawns, start screaming at them, saying, if you're not going to come to us, we're going to come to you.
One in the middle of the night.
One in the middle of the night
yes.
with family asleep. All of this indicating, as we keep saying, that this notion that the school year is somehow going to end the protests is a pipe dream, is an illusory pipe dream. And so this is also something else that's going to have to come up in the debate, actually, and what people are doing. I note, by the way, one last that Martha Pollack resigned as president of Cornell, and in her last statement, attacked people on campus, students on campus. Why? Because apparently one Jewish student called another Jewish student a capo, and somebody else said something that she deemed inappropriate about Palestinians. Not a word about attacks on Jews, not a word about anti-Semitism, not a word about Israel's committing genocide. And what this tells me, as we've been talking about this for months, is we have to keep in mind when people say, why are they allowing this? Why is Banush Safiq? Why isn't she going into why aren't they going at them? And it's because they're on their side. College presidents, university presidents, these administrators, all of that, if they're forced to choose a side, they are personally, ideologically, and in their own heads on the side of the protesters. And so ordinary people who say, well, they can't let this happen. Oh, the disorder and the decay. This is the point. These are the students they picked. This is the profession they entered. This is the world they want to lead.
It's the money they've taken.
And it's the money they've taken. So I think people need to stop being naive about how, well, of course, any rational adult who is 60 years old and is a serious academic would certainly not want these kinds of things to be going on, the disorder and decay on the campus. No, their fantasy is coming true.
Yeah, well, it's the ideas they preach in action. It's actually getting to see.
Right.
When do academics get to see their abstract BS notions actually interact with the real world and get something and do something? That's what this is for him. I think this going to the houses of people involved with the universities, for all we know, this could be the next iteration. We should watch this. There could be more and more of this. And
there's nothing new about it. They were going the
Supreme Court justices.
Left going after the Supreme Court justices. Right. There's an encampment outside the house of Secretary of State Blinken. Just on the faculty, it's funny you mentioned that, Abe, because listening to NPR on the way into town this morning, there was
Why would you do that to yourself, Matt?
I have to do research for this podcast. It's my
Matt is a believer in the views of the minority, and 30% of NPR's audience has vanished in the last 4 years, and Matt, as a Burkean, is trying to maintain this institution as it collapses.
Steel manning, Christine. I have to make sure my arguments go up against the best the other side has to offer. That's what I've been told. We all have to do to be good thinkers. So I'm listening this morning, and
they're talking about clearing the encampment at UC Irvine, and the NPR reporter goes, I'm making up the numbers. A couple dozen people were arrested, most of them faculty. And I laugh because, of course, that's, of course it's going to be the faculty. The students at UC Irvine have better things to do. But the faculty, this is where they want to be. This is the cosplay they want to participate in.
It's also, we have to remember that it's, the 60s were 60 years ago. And so if you were a student in the 60s who went through 60s-ism, you're like close to 80 years old now. Like you understand that? Like you're like 75 to 80 years old. Faculty under that age, in the 60s, like I graduated from college in 82. I'm 63 years old. We missed it. It was legend. It was legend.
But that's the point, right?
And
yeah,
so
that's
they're
the sweet
getting,
spot.
it's not just cosplay. It's like I was born too late. I didn't get to camp out in the administration building or go to the March on the Pentagon or go to Woodstock or do any of that stuff. My God, it's back. Finally, in my old, it's like going to a Bob Dylan concert when he's 97 years old, or these acts, the most successful acts in music are all people who performed, it's Madonna and, the Rolling Stones, except for Taylor Swift. Everybody's 9 to 1,000 years old.
But
so,
you know what?
Yeah.
This holds for the academics of that age.
Yeah.
The normal, including liberals, the non-academics who feel like they missed the 60s, don't like this. This is already to them not what their fantasy, the 60s of their minds, it was about.
Yeah, because it was like fun.
Right.
Well, the
60s
message
were
was
fun. There was
peace,
free
peace
love
and love,
peace
right?
and
Peace
Woodstock,
and love.
and
That is not the message of these protesters.
they were
Peace and love
sliding in the mud, and they're having so much fun. Can you imagine how many diseases people got after Woodstock?
Well, we're not doing that with this
Okay,
time around.
anyway,
Now we have the
yes.
banana allergy safe
That's
box.
right. We have
Put your
the fake-
bananas
Yes.
in the safe box
Yeah.
and obey all these rules. These
Yeah.
are not hippies, right? It's the authoritarian left that is
Yes. Yeah.
visible.
The authoritarian
behind
crunchy, the weird combination of crunchiness and authoritarianism that is a really interesting hallmark feature.
But
of our
it's
time.
also worth pointing out. The Tablet has been doing some great reporting, Free Beacon too, on the money behind
Mhm.
the encampment movement, and so it's far left heirs basically. Another reason for an inheritance tax. Funding
100% inheritance tax.
funding
Let's do
is-
it.
I mean,
Let's do it.
It is amazing how these huge fortunes
Newt
go
Gingrich,
to
the contract with America, there was all this stuff about the death tax, and we need to do something about the death tax because it's harming farmers and
Well, I
things.
get the farmers.
We
Maybe
need a death tax.
Maybe
And
just-
we need to have Elizabeth Warren is right. Elizabeth Warren is totally right. $100 million and over, 100% inheritance tax because something has got to stop.
You want to leave something for your kids, but do they have to be communist kids? Maybe just no communists. Can we put that into the law that you have? It's 100%.
You have to take a civics exam to inherit
for communists. That's my only ask.
Yeah,
but the list of groups that the communist heirs are giving money to, funding the encampment. I mean, it's the same groups that have been part of this, as you say, crunchy authoritarian left for 25 years. The Answer Coalition. I remember the Answer Coalition showing up on Columbia's campus after 9/11. These are far left Stalinist groups. We know Code Pink, the same type of thing. They're all part of this unending effort to tear America down, tear capitalism down, and Israel's just part of the trinity of hatreds for these people. It was comical to me. I was looking over the list because I remember covering anti-war meetings in 2003 in Morningside Heights, the neighborhood where Columbia is located. And I bet you the same kind of grubby, holes in their sweaters, hadn't bathed in a while, left-wingers who hang around Columbia are there in the encampment today. It's the same people.
So I just tell you a comic story from my own past that about 15 years after I graduated from the University of Chicago, a school notorious for, very difficult, demanding requirements on their PhD, on their higher education degrees, particularly PhDs, and people who are sort of, end up as I don't know what you would call it, sort of like the refuse or like the sad leavings of these challenges, the people who could never finish their work or something like that. And I had a girlfriend at the time before I met my wife who had gone to Chicago as well, and we took a trip to the University of Chicago in the summer to sort of like go to our old haunts and stuff like that. And there was a building there that the divinity school was in called Swift Hall, and various buildings at the University of Chicago had little coffee shops in the basement, where you could sit. Now everybody would be sitting with a laptop, right? But then you would just sit, either have conversations with people, you'd have like a bad croissant or something and some coffee, or maybe a tuna fish sandwich, and sit and have a place to relax between classes or whatever. But school wasn't on; it was the summer. And my girlfriend and I go down into Swift Hall, where I had classes with Alan Bloom, who used to teach in the big lecture hall in Swift Hall. So I had very nostalgic feelings about it. We go down the stairs into the coffee shop, and there are about 5 people there. And every single one of them had been sitting in that coffee shop at Swift Hall 10, 12 years earlier.
Right.
Literally, they were like, it was as though, this sad, like that I recognized them because they had been 26 and now they were 38 and they were still there. And they clearly hadn't finished their dissertations, and they were living in some rent-controlled apartment nearby, and nothing had happened in their lives. And this is the sad academic version of the perpetual. That's the perpetual.
Now they're living in tents
yes,
next to Sami Al-Arian's wife. Yeah. Is that progress?
That is progress. Okay, now, because I'm old, we were going to talk about 2 other things and then get to recommends. And I know that one of them is Israel, but I can't remember what we were going to talk about. So we have the pier. The pier
has arrived.
Finished?
The pier has arrived.
The pier has arrived.
It's there. So, we can take the over-under for how long it takes until Hamas starts firing on it. But
it already
Francis
did,
Collins.
Right?
We were going to talk about Francis Collins, by the way. So.
But let's quickly thank you. But quickly about Israel and the pier. So there's this big controversy because Defense Minister Yoav Gallant just gave a speech. And the general sense is that Yoav Gallant is basically doing Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan's dirty work by saying, where is the Israeli plan for the day after we win in Gaza? Because we cannot reoccupy Gaza, but we also cannot let Hamas. And there's no third. Where's the third way? Where's our third plan? Bibi needs to make a third plan. So this is interesting because, of course, it's all a distraction. Israel's on the verge of going into Rafah. The defense minister is now raising sort of existential, political, diplomatic questions that cannot be answered properly. And Jake Sullivan, I believe, is going back to the region. Why? Once again, because American officials are going to Israel every week to serve as human shields for Hamas. They're going there so that Israel will not be in full stage invasion of Rafah. So, maybe after next week, Jill Biden will go, or Pete Buttigieg will, whatever could happen, just to have
the second gentleman,
the Rosado brothers there to be the hostages to make sure that you don't kill anybody. That's who they sort of what's going on here. And so the administration is now playing very interesting games, interfering in domestic Israeli politics, seducing Israeli officials into sort of some kind of weird deal to sort of attack Bibi from his left. I don't know. It's all part of the fog of war. It's one of the reasons that they better get going, because if they don't get going, there'll be one of these games every 3 days to distract them from finishing up what they have to finish up.
And you know whose silence speaks volumes is Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who has gone missing from this debate since calling for a regime change in Israel earlier this spring. And the self-styled guardian of Israel and the Jewish people, the highest ranking Jewish official, as we have been told, even though Senate Majority Leader, is that a rank? I'm not sure it's a rank. Is it?
It's
It
rank.
is in Chuck Schumer's mind.
It
Yes.
can't be rank. We could take out the rank, just say rank.
But it's not, in any case, where is he? Where is he amidst
He's
all
in the
of
witness
this?
protection. He's on a milk carton.
Clearly.
He's on him because he made the speech. He did Biden a solid. Somebody wanted somebody to come out and say Bibi needs to be replaced. Schumer said, "I'll do it," and then the world fell down on his head. I mean,
It's
I
amazing.
have literally had 5 different people that I know who have received phone calls from Chuck Schumer, who have said to him, "I am never giving you money again, and I will never give the Democratic Party money again until this is resolved." And I think he did not know. He did not know that he was walking into a bus. All Chuck Schumer cares about is TV time and money. That's what he cares about. And the money was threatened. And he's like, "Okay, I took the hit. I'm sorry. You take it from here, because I'm not going any further." But once again, Israel's going nuts. The whole world is going nuts because we're standing on the precipice of this, of the final push, and it's not happening yet. Little bits and pieces of things are happening, and this is not healthy. This is not a healthy way to conduct this war psychologically for Israel, and it's having ancillary effects here. Although I do want to cite an important Fox News poll that came out, I think, this morning, about the attitudes of America toward Israel and Hamas and the Palestinians, that are shockingly heartening. Though, of course, we have seen these numbers, right? That if you ask, who do you support, Israel or Hamas? Forget the Palestinians. Israel or Hamas, America's 80-20 on Israel's side. We can all say 20 is too many. But I'll take the win no matter what. But in the Fox survey of registered voters, 57% of respondents side more with the Israelis, while just 28% favor the Palestinians. So that's a 2-to-1 margin. Even those under the age of 35 narrowly favor the Israelis, 47-42. Democrats favor Israel over the Palestinians, 43-39. Republicans, 75-15. Fewer than a third surveyed said they thought the U.S. was too supportive of Israel, while 63% either thought the United States isn't supportive enough or just right. 30% say not supportive enough or just right is 33%. 59% view the campus protests against Israel negatively, with just 33% supporting them. And 58% of respondents characterize the protests as anti-Israeli. 29% said the protests made them hold a less sympathetic view toward the Palestinians, while 16% said it makes them view the Palestinians more sympathetically. So once again, the American people are showing a wisdom or a common sense or something that the elites, of course, have completely abandoned, and showing the incredible success of the Guthrie 2-decade-long effort, Guthrie and others, to take over elite institutional opinion on these matters, while deciding basically to leave the public to one side. And the elites are going in one direction, and the public is pretty much resolutely staying where it is. Remember, this is Americans don't like foreign aid. Americans tend not to be interested in foreign policy, but you're asking these questions and they're answering them with double the support for Israel than for the Palestinians. And again, we're not even citing, because Israel's not at war with the Palestinians. It's at war with Hamas, the governing totalitarian body of Gaza. So I think that's worth noting and leaving there. Okay, let's move on to the last thing, which is the COVID reckoning, which is the slow roll over time on the American response to COVID. The House yesterday released or leaked out private testimony given by Francis Collins, the Nobel Prize winning head of is it NIH? I mean, I can't even remember. Okay, he's head of NIH, and therefore he was Anthony Fauci's theoretical boss during COVID. And he said like things that are enough to sort of knock you sideways. He doesn't know where the idea that distancing should be 6 feet came from. It just showed up, he said. Someone said, what was the scientific basis for it? He said, I don't know. So the main thing that happened to us as living in America was that schools might be open or closed, business, but we were all supposed to stand 6 feet apart from each other, was invented. It was made up. I know where it was invented and made up because I read Michael Lewis's book about COVID, and it was this group of 4 people who came up with the idea that social distancing should be 6 feet because there was a germ that went this and it floated, and then, but if it hit a surface, it died, whatever. And so this number was sort of emerged out of nowhere. It was the single most disruptive thing about our daily lives. I mean, I think without question, particularly if you lived in a city, it was just insanely disruptive, this notion that we were all supposed to sort of walk. And if you had kids who were in school, like they had this bizarre shuffle gavotte system where they would walk on hallways around the hallways, keeping themselves like the orphans in the Madeline story, somehow in neat little lines, but 6 feet apart.
Well, it forced businesses to restrict the number of people they could serve if they were still allowed to serve. Yes, it was
right. Okay, so that's that, and then we go on to the fact that the Department of Health and Human Services announced that it was debarring the EcoHealth Alliance. That is the group that was administering grants gotten in part from Fauci's National Institutes of Infectious Disease and Health and Fauciism, and that at least if you think money is fungible, paid for the gain of function research that was going on in the Wuhan lab that may have caused the outbreak of COVID-19. We don't know yet. Collins said we can no longer say the lab leak is
And this is really I have to jump in here because this is really important. The proximal origins paper, which was circulated, which became the basis for Fauci and Collins and others saying, "Oh, it's a conspiracy theory to suggest that this came from China." They deliberately and publicly stated, we don't have any evidence that it came from a lab. We don't have any. In fact, I think Collins said, like, they issued public statement after public statement based on this supposed research. What we found out later, of course, is that and they all cited science. Trust the experts. Trust science. Later, it was revealed that a lot of the experts said, "Oh no, it's totally plausible." But there was an internal discussion, much of it that took place on a Slack channel, which Fauci was involved in, where they wanted to suppress this. They made an active effort, and this was a choice that had nothing to do with hard science. It had everything to do with optics and with, probably ideological leanings or whatnot. But one of the things that came forward in this recent Collins leak is how much there was a closed circle where the experts were all citing each other as experts, but really the expertise, the supposed science underlying the expertise was rotten. And so the lack of kind of any outside person coming in and saying, this seems odd, or when that person did come, they were immediately ostracized or called a conspiracy theorist. Like, that is why people have mistrusted these institutions, particularly these public institutions. And I think that's something that needs to be reckoned with long term as well.
In some ways, it's a continuation of what you were just talking about, John, in terms of elite opinion on Israel and public opinion. It is just this this siloed group of elites who just sort of declare something, whether or not it makes sense, whether or not the public feels the same way, and not to be terribly political about it, that is Trump's bread and butter, and that is the Trump supporters' message. and we see it again and again.
So to praise the common person over the elite, the common person's reaction to COVID-19 was not, it's all crap. I'm gonna, I this is all ridiculous. They're making it a lot. It was, I'm worried about it. Worried about worried about old people. I'm less worried about kids because I see no kids are getting sick. But okay, fair is fair. Got to be careful. We're going to sort of follow the rules. When the vaccines came out, 78 to 80% of the American people got the first shot. Remember, it was hard to get the first shot. Like you had to line up for 3 hours to get the first shot. People got the shot, and then it was like, get the second shot. And then most of them got the second shot. Not everybody, but the fall off was pretty small. And then it was like, okay, you said there was a disease. It's not killing young people. It seems mostly to be affecting people who have other diseases. And I got it, and it wasn't so terrible. Some people got it. It was really terrible and have long COVID and all of that. But in general, they were commonsensical about it. And they said, I no longer feel a threat. I'm going to stop. And then Fauci would say things like, I want 90%. I want 90% compliance with, that's what I'm looking. Then we'll say it's over. Because, I thought 70, but now I'm going to go to 90. It was like when Andrew Cuomo was sitting in his office deciding what percentage of people you could have inside a restaurant during COVID times, like deciding on the spur, out of his head with nothing, and loving telling everybody what to do. And so the American people turned on this because they were commonsensical and because the elites were doing this for a massive mess of ideological and weird reasons that, again, history is going to have to sort through because it's just way too complicated.
So what you're bringing up Cuomo reminds me of the moment that as someone I'm not a populist, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and at first, when COVID first hit, I said, okay,
you're a little bit of a hypochondriac too.
How dare you? At the start,
you were scrubbing down your boxes. You were scrubbing down the groceries.
I was about to say I was following all the guidance. I was like, I don't know if they're right, they're wrong. I don't know what the hell this thing is. They're trying to get a hold of it. I'm not. Who am I? I have no expertise in these matters. Yeah. I'll follow along. And I was following along. And then by the time we were deep in lockdown, listening to Cuomo's nonsense fireside chat every day where he recite the numbers. And we're deep in lockdown at this point. And he's saying, well, and there's X, 1,000 new infections. And then day after day, he would talk about the new infections. And we're all in lockdown. And then finally, a journalist from there said, have you looked at who's still getting infected while we're in lockdown? And he goes, no. Could someone, well, we'll get back to you on that number, right? Never occurred to them. So I kept watching, and the same journalist, I wish I knew who it was, followed up and said, have you found out who this was? Have you found out where the new infections are coming from? And Cuomo said, yes, it seems to be from people who are locked down. It's not from essential workers. And I said, okay, forget this whole thing. Yeah. I'm done. The people in lockdown are getting infected, the ones that are now driving up the rates. The essential workers are out there, and they're not getting infected.
It's interesting that the encampment people wear the masks, but they're not practicing social distancing.
Apparently,
and have they received their booster? Maybe we could ask Dr. Fauci to visit some of the encampments and educate the Hamas sympathizers on the proper way to deal with COVID.
But you remember there's a really important ideological litmus test. You may gather together in protest outdoors as long as your cause is of the left. Otherwise, it's very dangerous.
As long as you support the Mary Harrington, the kind of heterodox writer for Unheard, she came up with the good term that I want to mainstream here. She calls it the omni cause.
Yes. Yeah.
And it kind of fits in with your piece, Abe, in the cover story about the woke jihad. But she was talking about Greta Thunberg wearing the keffiyeh, and she says it's just the omni cause.
That is a good line. And,
if you belong to the omni cause, you don't have to social distance.
And I thought about mentioning the climate change obsessives when in my sort of list of social
COVID,
justice causes,
climate,
because it is the
Hamas,
same thing. It is the same thing.
It's all the BLM.
But I didn't want to go down a road about do you deny
This is not
climate change?
criticism.
Right.
This is not criticism. It's
But
just
look,
it's
we all remember where it
complementary.
started, right? We remember where the neo-activism started, right? It started in Seattle at the Group of 20 meeting in 1999. I mean, there was an actual inception of the modern protest movement, and it is omnicause because there was no specific thing that they were protesting except
it morphed into the anti-war,
right.
and then it morphed into BLM.
Right, but there was climate change, but it was also inequality. It was also first world versus third world.
Oh, it was the empire.
There was no thing that was causing them to descend on Seattle and then have a riot, right? There was no thing.
It's just the West.
Yeah,
They just hate the West. They want to bring it down.
Right.
It's this
25
weird
years. Right.
will to. It's death wish. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, and it's 25 years. It's now a quarter of a century since the beginning of the Omni cause. Because before that, things did have single causes, right? They were wrong, and a lot of these people were behind it, like
single issues.
No first use, right? No first use of nuclear weapons. The installation of medium range missiles in Europe, which caused nuclear free. This gigantic series of demonstrations in Western Europe.
AIDS. That was a
AIDS,
single
right?
issue
But
that brought people out.
They were real things that were rallying causes. The way supporting Israel is a rallying cause right now as an individual one issue for a certain type of person, but the world of the Israel supporter, supporting Israel, will not roll over into something. Won't start being about capital gains taxes. But clearly, this is it's just a kind of opportunistic infection of the West that just keeps moving. Once you develop antibodies against one thing, it just moves on to attack another institutional body to keep itself.
It's like the virus the Chinese engineered back in 2019.
Yes. Thank you very much. And that brings us full circle, and it also brings us to Abe's recommendation today.
Okay. I have something that's very rare for me. I'm recommending something scripted, something on Apple TV, a series,
Wow,
a sci-fi series called Dark Matter.
Yes.
I got a chance to watch all available episodes so far. It takes place in Chicago. There is a physicist played by Joel Edgerton, and he is married to Jennifer Connelly, and they've got a teenage son. And he's just gets news that a sort of colleague of his won some massively prestigious prize, and he's kind of feeling torn about it all. But his wife convinces him to go out to the party to celebrate. And on the way home, he gets mugged and sent into an alternate reality, mugged and drugged, and wakes up in an alternate Chicago where he doesn't have a wife, doesn't have a child. He knows some people from his past, but clearly something very different is going on. That's pretty much all I could say because I don't want to give away anything else. But I am a sucker for like alternate reality plots and timelines.
And doesn't it have like a sliding doors quality? It's about different paths one's life can take.
Yes,
depending on choices or accident.
And it sort of ties this into quantum physics, like the idea that when anything happens, when you collapse the probability wave and create a new reality, right? It's good. I have to say, it's kind of well-trod ground. There's a bunch of movies that not just slide doors. There are a bunch of movies particularly like indie sci-fi movies, which I went through a period of watching a lot of them. A lot of them are very good, but if you're looking for like state-of-the-art special effects, that's not their thing. But they have a sort of different mood than big budget sci-fi, and sometimes it can be really interesting. Black comic, and there's a movie I would recommend. So it's a double recommend that has a kind of quite similar premise called The Wrong Todd. It's from a few years ago. It's darkly comic, and it has to do with someone going into their sort of an alternate version of their life.
See, this is perfect because we all want an alternative political universe right now. So this is a good escape.
Yes,
from
I'll take
reality.
that or time travel. I'm open for anyone. Any physicist wants to hit me up with time travel or another world.
Two weird things. One of which is Apple TV Plus did an extraordinarily similar series in some ways about a year ago called Constellation, which is about an astronaut who basically it appears that the universe is bifurcated, and that in one version of the universe she dies in an explosion in space, and in the other she comes back to Earth, and her daughter is the only person who really understands that this person who's come back to Earth isn't the same mother as her mother, even though she is also her mother. And that show ended up being very unsatisfying, though it started out really, really plausible, or not plausible, but like very entrancing. So it'll be interesting to see if they can stick the landing on this. And I want to also offer praise. You mentioned Joel Edgerton, the star of this. Joel Edgerton in 2015 wrote and directed and starred in a little like thriller, suspense, horror-ish movie called The Gift, which is about a guy who's bullied in high school who reemerges in the lives of his bully and his bully's wife. It is a sensationally good piece of work, like one of the best B movies ever made, made by the same team, produced by the same team that made Get Out, which also one of the great B movies ever made. And it did well, but people don't seem to remember or know about it. And I really cannot recommend The Gift enough. It's one of the most impressive directorial debuts and writing debuts, in the last 25 years. And that's Joel Edgerton, the star of Dark Matter. But Dark Matter is the recommendation.
He's a really underrated actor, best known for his role as Luke Skywalker's uncle. In the last 2 minutes. In the last 2 minutes.
You're right. Like the young uncle. Yeah.
That's how he got his start.
Yeah.
All right. Somehow reached the 90-year-old phase at 52, where I don't know anyone's name, so obviously I mispronounced
the problem
his name.
with Joel Edgerton,
Jennifer Connelly. How can
because she's from my youth.
Right. But there's a problem with Joel.
Yes.
There's a problem with Joel Edgerton, which is that there's another actor who is somewhat similar in mien and comportment to him, named Joel Kinnaman. And so I had a whole conversation about this show with somebody yesterday, and I kept and I was like, Joel Kinnaman, he's really, and he made the Gift. So the tragedy for Joel Edgerton is that he has a doppelganger in an alternate universe named Joel Kinnaman, who also happens to be in our universe. And so he's he either gets dual credit or no credit, and the same with his counterpart. Anyway, thank you so much. We'll be back tomorrow for Abe, Christine, and Matt. I'm John Podhoretz. Keep the candle burning.